This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
From PBS Kids, Miss Rosa, Jennifer Pena on this edition of Conversations. To many parents and children, she is the vivacious Miss Rosa on PBS Kids. But in real life, Jennifer Pena is a former teacher who has melded her two passions, teaching and acting. Pena's character, Miss Rosa, captivates the minds of children in between such shows as Curious George and Dinosaur Train. Her energetic and informative style makes learning easy and fun. The lessons flow effortlessly between English and Spanish. Pena has legitimate teaching and acting credentials. She's a certified teacher with real classroom experience, and her acting career began at age 9 with a role in the movie Ernest Saves Christmas. Her dual skill set is a perfect fit for Miss Rosa. Here's a look.
So, did you guess where we are today? Right, at a zoo, where you can see animals from all over the world, like this giraffe from Africa.
Hey, Miss Rosa, what do giraffes eat?
Well, let's go talk to Amy. She works here. Come on.
Hi guys, I'm Amy the zookeeper, and I'm cutting up food for the giraffe.
Oh, it looks like they eat carrots and sweet potatoes.
They do, and they also eat acacia leaves. Did you guys want to feed them?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
It sure is a purple tongue.
That's right, and there's a reason for that. That very shade of purple helps protect their tongue from the sun.
Cool!
Wow, you never know what you might learn when you explore new places and new things.
And she's right here with us, Miss Rosa. Jennifer Pena, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How did Miss Rosa come about?
So in 2007, PBS Kids was looking for a host that would come on and sort of be the continuous flow in between all of the great programming that they have. Something that would captivate the kids as they transitioned from one show to the next. Right. And so they did have somebody that was on air at the time, but they decided that, as most preschools or schools do, they have multiple teachers. So why not have multiple teachers on air? And they held a nationwide search. They hit all of the major markets looking for somebody to fill this spot. And they found me in Orlando, Florida. And I began as Miss Rosa fall of 2007, which started airing in 2008.
What were you doing at the time in Orlando?
At the time, I had just left my teaching job and was trying to focus on acting and give it one last go and see if this was really something that I could do as a career and give it one more shot. And a year after I left the classroom and started focusing on acting full time, I became Miss Rosa.
It's kind of funny, though, how it comes back to tie in your teaching, huh?
Funny is not even the word to begin to describe it. It's been a crazy, amazing adventure. I never would have thought, being a child actor, that I would have wound up in the classroom. That sort of happened accidentally, but that's another story. And so then I became a teacher and thought, acting isn't a real job. That's not something that pays the bills. I did it because I was young and, I was cute. Yeah. And then I sort of thought, let's give it one more shot. And then when PBS came around and I saw the breakdown. A breakdown is an actual sheet that tells you exactly what they're looking for, sort of a definition or a description of what the character is or the person is. I thought it was a joke because it was me to a T on a piece of paper. And that's when I knew that this could possibly work.
Well, tell me how your acting career started. Now, at age 9, you started. Now, did you start acting at age 9, or was that just your first movie role?
That was the first movie role. So I had actually started in dance. So I was dancing and just sort of was always the performer in the house. Mm-hmm. I was definitely one to try to get everybody's attention. I always wanted everybody to be entertained and have a good time. And so I was always doing some sort of entertainment. So I started with the dancing. And that led me to beauty pageants, which were not what they are today. It was a whole different world back then. And so I did that. And one day there was an agent in the audience, and she told my mom that I should get involved in commercial work. And one thing led to another, and Ernest Saves Christmas was the first film credit that I had.
Okay, and for people who don't remember, Ernest Saves Christmas. Ernest was the he was the character, the Hey Vern guy. Remember Hey Vern?
Yes. The silly but lovable guy.
Well, I mean, in a way, he was a creative genius. I mean, developing that character like that.
Absolutely. I mean, it is sort of funny because so my first film was with Jim Vern in Ernest Saves Christmas, and I later wound up working with Larry the Cable Guy, which is almost kind of the same new age version of the character.
Yeah.
So that was they were both fun to work with.
And where did you work with Larry?
They actually both wound up. So Ernest was shot in Orlando, as was Larry the Cable Guy.
On a movie with Larry?
On a movie. He had his health inspector film that was shot on location.
Okay. I bet that was quite an experience, wasn't it?
That was great. That was hilarious. Good stuff.
I can imagine. So take me back. So you're acting, you're doing things. What got you into teaching?
When I graduated from high school, I decided that, again, acting it wasn't a real job. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to go and I wanted to get my college education. I was the first one in my family to go to university. And I told my mother that I was only going to apply to one school. And if I didn't get accepted, I was going to New York to become a dancer. And my mother never prayed so hard in my life for that acceptance letter. So I wound up getting accepted to Florida State. Went to Florida State and I decided I was just going to be a normal kid. I didn't want anything to do with acting. I didn't want to have to worry about balancing the schedule of being on set and classwork. So I just focused on studies and I got very involved in the university campus life. Wound up double majoring in international affairs and political science. Thought for sure I was going to be a politician one day. And so I came home for a year and was going to go to law school. I needed a job to pay for law school. I started volunteering at the high school that I graduated from, and my principal offered me a job. And I said, "You're crazy, I'm not a teacher, I don't know anything about teaching." And he said, "Well, you're great with the kids, they take to you beautifully, you're very professional with them, and here's what you'll make." And I said, "Where do I sign?" Because that was a nice chunk to put away for law school. Right. 1 year of teaching became 2, 2 became 3, 4.5 years later, I was still in the classroom, loving every moment of it, but thought, I'm a teacher, I can always go back, let's give this acting one more chance. So
what makes a good teacher?
That's a great question. I was actually having a conversation earlier today that my students taught me how to teach. They showed me that I had the ability and the skill to teach that I never would have known had it not been for them. I think what makes a good teacher is someone that is passionate about just learning. I think all of us are teachers to some capacity. Learning something on a daily basis or just wanting to improve yourself or just be more inquisitive about the world around you sets you up to be a great student, but then it's passing that knowledge on and wanting to then inspire and motivate others around you to be as curious and as inquisitive, I think is what makes a good teacher.
Interesting. You know, people always, I won't say always, but sometimes people want to throw blame at teachers, say, well, students aren't doing well, it's the teacher's fault, or test scores are not where they need to be, it's the teacher's fault. I'm sure that's the case, that may be the case in some instances, but what would you tell people who say that? How would you counter that?
I would honestly say my philosophy has always been that it's up to you, it's up to the individual, it's up to the person. So for example, the school that I went to, the high school that I went to, was a Title I school. It had a high ethnic diversity. We had a lot of lower income families and students that were associated with the population. And it was a very transient area, so there was a lot of comings and goings. You were always meeting new people, which was good, but there was no real foundation or, not history, but tradition, I guess you could say. And so the majority of the student body was pretty average. And yet I still was able to go to college. And not only did I get a bachelor's degree, but I have a master's degree. Now, did that particular school give me the best education possible? Is it world renowned? Absolutely not. But I made a conscious effort because of the teachings that my parents gave me to make that decision that I was going to make the best out of it. So I got out what I put in. Right. And I think that that's the case with anything. And so the answer to your question is I think it does fall back on the parents. If you give your kids that desire to want to be the best that they can be and to just give anything that they're involved in their best effort, then they're going to get the best effort out of it.
Yeah, parental involvement is so important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The only thing is, do you think we're somewhat challenged with all the broken homes, that some of us are more fortunate than others to have parents who will get involved? So how do we as a society help those children who may not be so fortunate as to have parents who are, active with them?
Sure. I don't want to say that it's any one other person's responsibility to kind of fill in that void, but I think that there's a great amount of resources that are out there, especially in today's day and age. And, I loved saying it, but PBS Kids is one of those resources. They are great at providing really sound educational programming that parents can trust. So if for some reason there is, as you say, a broken home where the parent doesn't have the opportunity or have the ability to sit down and really dedicate the time to that one-on-one attention with the child, at least they know that they have that resource of the television or of the internet-based programming that PBS Kids offers, and know that they're trusted, that they're not just leaving their child, sort of blanklessly mesmerized by this horrible entertainment. At least they're going to get something out of it. And it's something as simple as taking what that child happened to see, or maybe overhearing it while you're in the kitchen cooking, and then bringing it up at the dinner table, or in the car when you're on your way to drop your kids off at school, or as you're saying goodbye to them, kissing them goodbye, or saying hello to them from your day. Maybe that, I was a latchkey kid, so I know what it is to get home before my parents and try to get my homework done. And, make sure the house was clean before my parents came home. And so it just takes that 2 or 3 minutes of interaction. Hey, I love you. How was your day? Do you remember what you saw this morning on Curious George? Right. Or, incorporating it somehow into their world. And that can make a lot of difference.
What kind of things are our kids going to learn from the various shows on PBS Kids?
Everything from reading to science to math skills. They've really done a good job of really expanding the curriculum that kids are exposed to on PBS Kids. So of course you've got Curious George that really at the end of the day, not only is it a classic, but it encourages kids to explore their world and to be curious and ask questions, and that's a part of learning. And we have a new show, Peg Plus Cat, that's all about math and problem solving. I'll tell you sort of a small little example. So I have a 2-year-old son, and my son misplaced something. It was in a drawer in an end table that was turned one way. Well, I, in the middle of cleaning the house, turned it the right way. And so he goes into the room, and he comes running out of the room, "Mama, it's gone. It's a catastrophe." Now, if you're not familiar with Peg Plus Cat is this animated series about this little girl who solves problems, and most of them are math-based. And one of the things that she says throughout most of the episodes is when a problem comes up or there's something that's out of place is, "It's a catastrophe." So here my 2-year-old son is telling me that it's a catastrophe that this item is missing. So I go in there and I show him where it is. And to make it full circle and sort of bring it home to him, I sang the song that she sings at the end, which is "Problem solved." We solved the problem. You had a problem, we thought about it, we figured it out, and now the problem is solved. So that's just a small example of how that one episode that he happened to see, we could then bring full circle and sort of go beyond that broadcast into his own world, and he could bridge that connection.
Something he could relate to.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you do that I like is you weave in English and Spanish. Tell me more about that.
Well, I am Hispanic, and so I do speak Spanish fluently. And one of the things that I think PBS Kids is really good about is introducing kids to things that are different, but that are prevalent to their world. And learning second languages is something that it's not a new phenomenon. People have done it obviously for centuries, but it's definitely, I think, becoming more common and more popular in the school systems in the United States. And so getting a chance to tap into the Hispanic market that is extremely, extremely quickly growing,
Yep.
is important. Not only does it give those kids that speak Spanish at home the chance to hear their own language on a television program that they would see, but it's also helping their peers who are not Spanish speakers be exposed to something new, so that when that child comes in and may have an accent or may speak a different language, it's not a turnoff, it's not a flag, there's not a fear factor. Now I'm more comfortable dealing with it, so now I can be curious and ask questions about it. So they've done a really good job of not doing too much of it, but just enough so that it keeps kids curious and it gets them to realize that learning something new is fun.
Do you think, just as an overall educational system in the United States, that we should put more of a focus on children learning a second language? Because if you go to other countries, it's relatively common.
Sure. It's definitely more mainstream overseas. It's second nature. There's not even a question or a thought about it. Putting more of a focus on it, I don't know that I would say put more of a focus on it. I think that it's important that we understand the value of it and maybe we give it more of a value and understand the importance behind it. I'm not a scientist and I'm not, a critically acclaimed research person, but I can tell you that, everybody knows, studies show individuals that not only are involved in music, but that learn second languages, it does help them learn in other aspects of their education. So having that exposure and experience, I think, is good. I think it's just, one other notch to give our kids on their tool belt. So why wouldn't we want to give them as many tools as possible to help them figure out and discover who they want to be? How many 5-year-olds really know what they're going to do for the rest of their life? By that point, how many 21-year-olds know what they want to do for the rest of their life? So, had I personally, for example, not taken a political science class at Florida State University, I would have never realized that I loved politics. Had I not taken an economics class, I would have never realized how much I could not stand the world of economics. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways.
You still love politics?
I do. There is something about it that is it's interesting. It's crazy, but it's fun.
But it's a place that, particularly in today's world, that we need strong leadership and fresh new ideas. Wouldn't you agree? Absolutely.
So I taught high school. I taught high schoolers, high school seniors, and I actually taught political science. And of course, one of the topics that you go over is the office of the presidency and what that entails, what his responsibilities are. And one of the projects that I would have my kids do is an actual campaign. They had to nominate 3 students from the class, and they had to go on and have a campaign. They had to raise funds. They had to create an ad, and the students would vote for their president. And I would always joke that one day I would run for president. And one of my former students found me on Facebook and still said, "I'm waiting to see your name on that ballot." And I thought, well, maybe not such a reality anymore, but it's a fun thought.
But it could happen.
You never know. I'm Miss Rosa on PBS Kids. Who would have ever thunk, really? Anything is possible.
Hey, Ronald Reagan was an actor, right?
This is true. This is true.
So certainly you can do that. When you put together the segments that you do, now, is that something you come up with? You work with a team? How do you go about deciding what you're going to do for the Miss Rosa segments?
The way that it's worked in the past is typically there's roundtable discussions with a group of individuals, mostly producers that are in-house at PBS, and they come up with the concepts, they come up with the ideas. Now, they're very, very thorough about sort of researching, testing them, making sure that they're topics that people are going to be interested in, making sure that the information that's being conveyed is done correctly. I was able to sort of chime in and help, particularly with the Spanish, making sure that what we were, the responsibility that comes with doing that, making sure that it's being done correctly and, effectively. Because to just throw out a word for the sake of throwing it out in the world of a 5-year-old isn't really going to convey what they need to know to help them learn it later on and then use it correctly later on. So that was sort of how I was able to help.
Is there one particular area that you personally enjoy? I mean, is there one particular thing that you do? You know, I see you on the field trips and things like that. Do you have an area of focus that you like?
I love it all. I do love it all. Now, one of the things that you may or may not have seen, obviously because it's not on air, is that I also get the chance to travel around and visit local PBS stations around the country. And with the live shows, what we do is we actually have live shows, whether it's an event or a family expo. Sometimes I get a chance to visit educational schools or different educational, daycare centers or that sort of thing. But we also do some community outreach. I've gotten a few opportunities to actually get a chance to meet with some daycare providers or caretakers or parents and give them ideas and resources on behalf of PBS Kids on how they can help do what we do in their own home. And I think that's been pretty fun. I love working with the kids. That's the teacher in me. But like you said earlier in our conversation, there does seem to be a growing amount of, there's been a missing factor in what happens in the home and what happens in the classroom and how that void can be filled. This is one way to do it. If we can give parents and other care providers the information and the resources that they need to help bridge that gap, then the kids are going to be better off for it. So that's one of the fun things that I really enjoy getting a chance to do.
Speaking of resources, how is technology helping, or for that matter, changing the way we educate our kids?
Technology is huge, very much so, particularly because now, as a society, and now the kids are learning, we want everything now. We don't want to wait until Thursday at 8 o'clock at night to watch our show. We want to see it now, and we don't want to wait next week to watch the second episode. We want to watch all 15 back to back. So technology has been really helpful because of the convenience of on demand. And just being able to offer that tool when you need it as opposed to having to wait. But it also helps to bring, again, it's sort of that idea of beyond the broadcast, bringing what the kids are watching inside of that box, that television, into their world. Because now it's not something that they're watching, now it's something that they're physically interacting with, whether it's on one of your smartphones or whether it's on a tablet or whether it's on a computer. They have control over what it is that they're learning. They're directly interacting with. So I think technology is huge when it comes to the impact that all of these resources have on education.
Now, are you guys using apps and things of that nature? I mean, that's kind of the thing everyone's going to this day and age.
Absolutely.
What are you doing from that standpoint? What is a kid going to learn if they get various apps?
So PBS Kids has, they have their apps, again, for tablets and smartphones. They also have an entire online learning community that's through their website, pbskids.org. Kids and parents can hop onto their computers and pick a particular show that they want to learn more about. And then within that show, there are different games that they can play that are, of course, education-based, based on the curriculum of that particular show. So, for example, the Cat in the Hat is science-based. So they're going to be doing, playing with games that are more about animals or, that sort of science-based concept. The new Peg Plus Cat website is about problem solving. So there's actually, it's about counting and it's about adding and subtracting and the idea of the math theories that young kids would need to know. In terms of the apps, there's some pretty fun ones. Dinosaur Train has a photographic app that they do where it shows you the dinosaur that they want you to capture, and there's different dinosaurs walking around the ground or up in the air, and you actually have to use your app or iPhone and move it around as if it was an actual camera. Find that particular dinosaur, photograph it, and match it up with the one that they've chosen. So it's a fun way to get kids to recognize perhaps colors. This is a green dinosaur. Find another green dinosaur. Or, this is a brontosaurus. Can you find another brontosaurus? So it gets them to pay attention to what it is that they're being asked and then try to match it up with that item.
That's fascinating. As you look into the future, in your current role, what do you see? What are your hopes and what do you see with your current PBS role?
That's a fun question. What do I see? The sky's the limit. the sky's the limit, particularly with PBS, but specifically with the character of Miss Rosa. The sky's the limit because a lot of programming is animated. And there really isn't very much live action, particularly an adult that is seen as, the way that PBS has presented to parents, as a trusted guide, somebody that kids can actually interact with when they get a chance to see me in person, someone that parents can feel comfortable sitting their kids in front of the television to watch. And so, it's, who knows? Like I said, the sky's the limit. Miss Rosa will have her own movie one day. I don't know. It could be anything. It could be, a television show. It could be anything. But but for now, the fun adventure and opportunities that I have to travel around the country and interact with the kids one-on-one and hear their crazy questions like, how did they make you real? Because they're so used to seeing you on the TV. Those are questions that I get a chance to answer that maybe they don't necessarily get answers from the costume characters. So it gets to be a more fulfilling experience for them, which is nice.
In about 1 minute for Jennifer Pena, more movies? Is that a goal?
More movies. I like hosting. You looking for a co-host? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, who knows? Television, films have a tough schedule, and like I said, I've got 2 little ones, so maybe not right now. Right now, I would be looking for something more continuous, more laid back. Television is for me. Hosting is for me. PBS Kids is definitely for me. It's been a pretty good fit.
Yeah, you're a natural.
Thanks.
What a pleasure spending some time with you.
Thank you. Wow, already. That
It's
was fast.
Wasn't too bad, was it?
Not at all.
Very nice to meet you.
So
Best of luck
nice
to
meet
you.
Thanks.
Jennifer Pena is her name. She's Miss Rosa on PBS Kids, and you can watch her mornings on PBS and also on the web. The place to go for entertaining and educational activities is pbskids.org. For more conversations online, probably nowhere near as fun or fascinating as Miss Rosa, but nonetheless, you can find us at WSRE.org/conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take great care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.